Hey everyone, this is Chris here with Daily Motor, and today we've got the infotainment tour and demo on the 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLE and its 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system. Before we get started, let's hop out and take a walk around it. This particular GLE is the 53 AMG, the entry-level AMG, but kind of a mid-grade in the GLE lineup. Of course, there are models below it, and above it, the 63S AMG. If you want to learn more about the GLE 53 AMG, there will be links in the description to other videos we've filmed on this car, such as a full review, a fuel economy test, and more. But I've really enjoyed driving this thing around for a few days, and I'm excited to show you guys some of the tech inside of this quite advanced SUV. So let's go ahead and hop in and get started because we have a lot to cover. There is a ton of customization in this GLE. There are a ton of different options to set up things, and there's different ways to control stuff. And go ahead, settle in, grab a cup of coffee, grab some food, because I guarantee you will finish eating or drinking before I am done showing you all of the technology in this car. But we're gonna start with the gauge cluster right in front of us, also 12.3 inches, matches exactly to the infotainment screen, 12.3 and 12.3. It's one continuous big piece of glass that goes all the way across, well, I guess not all the way across the dash, but most of the way across the dash. So let's take a look first at the cluster. We've got controls on the steering wheel for the cluster on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. Really the only one that does anything is this back home button here on the left, and also this middle button here, which acts as a trackpad. You can see the way I move my finger, it takes you across to wherever you want to be on the cluster. So you have customization for each of your pods here, I guess we can call. You have your left gauge pod, your middle gauge pod, and your right-hand side gauge pod. Traditionally, you just have a speedometer, a trip computer in the middle, and a rev counter on the right, but Mercedes makes it so you can have pretty much whatever you want, as you can see on the right, or excuse me, on the left-hand side. So of course, we have a speedo at the top. One swipe down gives you an analog clock. We've got a couple of trip computers. We have the media. You can see what song I'm listening to there on Spotify. And then we also have what appears to be a, whatever you call that gauge. You can see I'm sitting down -4 degrees right now. I am in a slight incline. Let's switch that back to a speedometer because that's all that I really care about having. I should also mention that you have a number of different gauge cluster design choices. You've got this classic display, you've got a sport display, and then you have like the full AMG track display. If you have a GLE that isn't an AMG, you aren't going to have all of these different choices. You may have a couple different ones, but this, some of these designs are specific to the AMG models only, so keep that in mind. In the middle here, we have a couple of different options. Boost gauge on the top, temp gauge is on the bottom, boost gauge on the top, horsepower and torque on the bottom. We've also got all of our different settings here. You can see I'm just in comfort mode right now. And then we also have a G meter. And if you thought we were done there, no, you're able to customize the right-hand side too. If you don't want to have a rev counter, you can have a rev counter with a tire pressure readout in the middle, rev counter with a boost gauge, rev counter with all of your drive mode options. You can have a massive G meter, fuel gauge, or excuse me, fuel economy gauge, navigation, whatever that is. You can track your 4MATIC. You can see where the car is sending power. And also your suspension height measurement, if you have the car lifted, lowered, or in the middle, as well as if you have it in Comfort, Sport, or Sport Plus. So many different options, and guys, to be honest with you, I feel like this is too much. I mean, who is using all of this? Why do I need, I mean, I guess I appreciate that you can like just have it your way, right? Like you can have anything you want in here, but I've been driving this car for 2 days, and to be honest, I haven't even discovered all of the stuff that is in this car. It is that complex, and hopefully we can get through all of it today, but I don't blame you guys if you tune out a little bit early because it's very, very intense. Let's touch on the rest of the steering wheel just while we're here so we don't have to come back to it later. You can also control this screen from the steering wheel with this little touchpad here on the right-hand side, as well as the home and the back button. But you can also control this infotainment display as a touchscreen, or you can control it down here with the touchpad. So there are 3 different ways that that you can control your infotainment display. It's hilarious the amount of options that you have. But we're actually not done with the cluster yet. I am getting slightly ahead of myself because you are able to change your cluster settings here in the settings menu. When you go, I believe, to system, yep, here we go, designs and display. And you have 3 different cluster options. You can also put your cluster into sport. You can see that makes it yellow faced gauges. Pretty neat. Or you can have super sport. Yes, this is the proper AMG, very sporty display. And of course, you guessed it, all of the different customizations. They do the same thing, they just look different, so we won't like go through all of those, but you are able to switch them to be whatever you like. If you want to have 2 rev counters, well then you can. You can have a rev counter in the middle and on the right, because why would you not want to have that? I prefer having the thing in classic or sport. I don't really love the super sport design, but if you love super sport design, then you're able to have that in your GLE. You can also set your ambient lighting to go along with your gauge design. So if you put it in sport, it turns everything red in here. So if that's what you're into, well then you're able to do that. Okay, that's as far as we're going to go into the gauge cluster. I believe I covered about 90% of everything that does. You've also got a couple little screens down here on the steering wheel. Similar to Porsche, you can adjust your drive mode here on the fly on the steering wheel. And when you go into sport, it makes the exhaust all loud. So that sounds pretty cool. Obviously, we'll sit in comfort mode, so you guys don't have to hear all of that idling. You can also switch your suspension settings over here on the left-hand side. I'm not going to do that right now because the car will get confused and I don't want to sit here waiting for it to adjust its suspension. So let's go ahead and move on to this 12.3-inch infotainment display. You thought the cluster was intense. Wait till you see the infotainment. So before we get into these menus, let's talk about what is always on this screen. What are the permanent things here on the screen? Well, you've got a home button up here in the upper left-hand side that will default you to navigation. You've got your driver profile here to the right of that. Of course, we're just on a test driver profile because this is a press car that we're testing this week, so we don't have our own unique profile. You've also got a back button that takes you back to start screen if you go somewhere else. You've got your phone projection, one to the right of that. I've got my phone in for Apple CarPlay right now. You've got a search function. Yes, they give you a search function on here. If you're lost and you want to find something, you know, it'll give you whatever you need. There's some owner's manual things over here that tell you how to do stuff. You can speak into the car, whatever. So you'd have a search function there at the top. On the right-hand side, you have a notifications tab. We don't have any notifications right now, but if you did, they would pop up there. On the bottom, we have temperature icons here, which take you to your climate control. You also have a physical climate control panel down at the bottom below the vents. So as you can see, there is a recurring theme here, multiple ways to control things. You can adjust pretty much everything down here at the bottom, but as soon as you prompt this to do climate control things, it'll put this menu up here. You can adjust fan speed, where the vents are blowing, as well as temperature on this screen as well. But if you want to blindly reach and not deal with this screen while you're driving, you've got all these controls at the bottom, which make very satisfying clicks when you touch them. You can see I just turned climate control off there. You can turn it back on. Airflow 1. You can adjust temperature down here as well with this button. Makes a very nice click. I do quite enjoy that. Hazard switch down here in this row as well. And I think that's about it for climate control. Again, multiple ways to control things, of course, being that this is a Mercedes. They give you tons of options. Okay, so let's talk about all of these different menus here. We'll scroll through them, show you all of them first, and then we'll take a deep dive into them to show you what they do. We've got phone, navigation, radio, media, comfort, AMG performance, Mercedes Me and apps, and settings at the very end. If you don't want to use the touchscreen, you can use this little touchpad down here, and that will scroll you through all of these menus as well. If you don't want to use the touchscreen, they give you plenty of options, don't worry. Also got this little volume knob down here next to the touchpad, which is very sensitive. Let me switch back to POV for a second. I've got my phone plugged in here for Apple CarPlay, and if the cord touches, like, look at this. Look how sensitive this is. If the cord brushes on this, it's totally screwing up whatever you're doing there in your infotainment screen. So be mindful of that. If you have your phone plugged in, make sure your cord isn't touching your touchpad because it'll just go through everything. Additionally, if you don't want to mess with your drive modes here on the steering wheel, you're able to do that down here with this switch. You can go through your drive modes on here as well, because why would you not have two ways to pick drive modes? Other physical buttons over here by the touchpad, you've got a quick access button to your navigation, a quick access button to your media. You've got a quick access button to your phone, which also leaves you in phone projection. Quick access button to your favorites. Quick access button to car controls, as well as your parking sensors and cameras. Home button down here on the touchpad as well that will take you back home. Okay, let's go ahead and go through these tabs like I said we would 2 minutes ago, but then I got distracted with other things. You've got the phone tab here, which will just take you to phone projection. Guys, all of your phone settings in here, whether you have a phone Bluetoothed or phone projection, all of the different phone options will just take you to whatever your phone is connected as. So I have Apple CarPlay in right now, and that is what the phone tab will take you to. Go back home and we'll click on our navigation, which does look quite pretty. Of course, if you don't want to have navigation here on your main infotainment screen, you can have it in your cluster as well. Of course, they give you multiple options for that. Pretty fast, decently fast system refresh rate here. You can see dragging the map around. You can search a destination here. You can enter a point of interest. You can use voice command. Starbucks. So that'll put that in and it will search for a nearby Starbucks. That's taking too long, so we're not going to wait for that to work, but that is how the voice command works. You can also switch your display to 3D or 2D. See there, more of a bird's eye view. Recenter with that button. Okay, go back home here out of navigation. It's also worth mentioning you've got shortcuts here below each screen. Got your radio function here. I think the volume was on. Okay. So here is our radio tab. We have all of our different sources at the top. Sirius XM, FM, AM, and TuneIn radio. Whatever that is. We've got AM radio here, FM, Sirius XM. To get through, we've got little arrows here. Every time you touch it, it turns the volume up, so we won't spend too much time in here as we don't want to get demonetized, but there is your radio display. I'm not seeing a tune knob in this car, so if you do want to tune through, you have to scroll through here on the touchscreen. This media tab exists for if you have a phone Bluetooth. As you can see, this will prompt me to go to Apple CarPlay because that is what I have my phone connected as. Comfort menu here for your massaging seats. You can see you've got all of these different choices, tons of different ways to get a massage. And you know what? I want a back massage right now, so let's go ahead and activate that. Cool. Okay, well, while that activates with the play button, ooh, that feels quite nice. I don't care that you guys have to listen to that for the rest of the video. I'm going to get a massage. You've also got different ways to adjust these seats. Very beautiful AMG seats that adjust in a ton of different ways. You can see all of those ways here. Additionally, in the comfort menu, we are able to adjust our ambient lighting. We have a ton of different colors. You're able to adjust a custom color here, and we'll go into the actual settings menu later to show you the default colors for your ambient lighting. You can also adjust brightness here. Turn that all the way up, because why not? Okay, let's go back home and go into the AMG performance menu. Of course, this is specific to your AMG cars, but we just have a couple of different menus in here that show you different data about your car. You can see here. Of course, that is more dramatic while you're driving. Fuel consumption in here, as well as your dynamic select. Mercedes Me and apps. This is more so like your Sirius XM weather apps and things like that. If you actually own this car, you have your Mercedes app, you can work with all of those functions. Finally, on the right-hand side, we have the settings menu. You've got quick access settings for driver aids, driver assistance, camera and parking settings, vehicle settings for your memory seats and other things, acoustic lock. You can make it so it honks or doesn't honk when you lock it. And here we have our ambient lighting settings. You can see we've got multicolor here. We can go through our default colors. Ocean blue, purple sky, red moon, fire red, dawn blue, sun yellow, jungle green, glacier blue, color flash, and color mix. Multicolor animation will make this so it will switch between the multicolors as you drive, so from top to bottom. Guys, as far as ambient lighting goes, Mercedes is the king. No one else comes close to ambient lighting. Mercedes basically invented it, so there you go. Mercedes is the best when it comes to ambient lighting, and I will stand with that until someone else really impresses me with their ambient lighting, but Mercedes always does the best. Using the back button down there on the touchpad, we can get back to our other settings. You've got system settings here, which we went through earlier with the cluster, but you've also got different settings in here to adjust, well, everything else you can think of. Audio, other controls, voice assistant, everything like that. And then you have your owner's manual there on the right-hand side. There's also something in here called Hey Mercedes. Hey Mercedes.
How can I help?
Set the climate control to 68 degrees.
I'm setting the temperature to 68 degrees.
So that's your oof, okay. Well, I don't want to say that again because I don't want to trigger it. Usually if you say the M word in here, it does trigger that thing to come on. It can get kind of annoying at times, but you have a little built-in assistant there to do whatever you want her to do. So that's pretty polite. Before we get into Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, let's just take one last look here at the bottom part of this infotainment system. You've got your suggestions tab here. If you actually own this car, you can have it track what you do on a daily basis, and it will suggest what you want to do at any given time. You've also got all of these different themes down here to set the theme for your entire car. I've got mine set in Trip right now, but there is also Adventure setting, which just adjusts all of the different options that I already showed you. It's also raising our suspension for some reason. I don't know. But if you're going on a gravel road or something and you just want quick access to adventure mode, you're able to do that with some of these different settings. The only thing I don't like is it then takes you back and you have to like go all the way back to this. But anyways, trip mode is what I've been in, or I guess I haven't been in trip mode actually. I just lied to you guys. I've actually just been in standard mode. I've been in standard mode. Standard. There you go. So that'll take you to that. We've got a number of different modes here that just take you to put you in different moods, I guess. I like the thumbnail for adventure. It's a classic G-Wagon going up a hill. And finally, at the bottom, we have all of our favorites. If you want quick access to certain things in the car, you're able to set your favorites up down here. You can see we've got a fast one there to driver's massage, which I'm going to turn off because I am like... Oh, good. Okay, I'm like sweating right now. Okay, so that'll just about do it here for the base level here of the infotainment system. I believe I've showed you guys everything in here. So let's go ahead and take a look at Apple CarPlay. My phone's already plugged in. Unfortunately, no wide view here with Apple CarPlay, just 4 apps across, 2 apps down. They didn't utilize this entire 12.3 inches here. They've only utilized a middle portion, but that's okay. You can see it reacts decently quick. Let's take a look here into Spotify. Oops, did that wrong. See, here's Spotify. Seems to work pretty well. Google Maps. Waze. Not too bad. Overall, a pretty good functionality here for Apple CarPlay, but I do wish that they would have utilized this whole screen and made it a 5-app widescreen view. Mercedes button here to take you back to your home screen. And that'll just about do it for Apple CarPlay. Let's go ahead and unplug the iPhone and plug in the Android phone to take a quick look at Android Auto And then that'll be it for today. Similar view here for Android Auto, no wide view, just this view in the middle. However, resolution looks pretty good. Let's see how it runs. Tabs here on the left-hand side. Looks like it runs pretty quick, and the resolution is pretty decent as well. It's telling me the battery is low on the phone. Thank you. This is an inactive Android, so we won't be able to view many things here. We can take a scroll through YouTube Music. This is Charlie's old inactive phone. No notifications. This is mostly just to show you guys how Android Auto looks on here and also how it runs. Actually does a pretty good job. Again, I wish we just had a wide view for some of this phone projection, and you know, it would be quite nice. Mercedes button here to get you back to your home screen at Mercedes. But that'll just about do it for today. I hope I have remembered to show you guys everything. I'm sure I missed something, and I do apologize for that. But if you've stuck around this long, thank you so much. Again, links are down in the description for other videos on this GLE 53. If I had to give an overall opinion on this infotainment system, I would say it's good, but it can be overwhelming at times. I was quite overwhelmed driving this car for the past couple of days, but that could also be because we just don't drive Mercedes-Benz cars that much, so I'm not super used to this infotainment system and all that it has to offer. I will say it does kind of remind me of the new iDrive system, just because it gives you so many options and so many different ways to do things that it can be overwhelming. But if you actually owned this car, I don't think it would be too bad. I think you get the hang of it pretty quick, and it would just be second nature. So overall, a pretty good score. I mean, everything works fine. There's no functionality issues. There's no real lag in this. If I had to give a suggestion, I just wish that the phone projection was a wide view, and I'm sure that with the next generation of GLE and everything, we will see that. Although they're kind of going to a vertical system in the new Benz cars, so maybe that will, you know, change everything altogether. But that'll do it for us today. Again, thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been Chris here with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.